Live. Awesome.
Wait, am I live? Am I live?
Yeah. You're live.
Oh,
You are now live.
it's just
Live
this is a
before, but I'm
podcast.
live now.
You are definitely live now. Alright.
What should we podcast about?
Very
I've
good
never
question.
listened to podcasts.
No?
I feel like I'm appropriating an art form
Yeah, sure.
now by doing this.
Podcasts are amazing. Ooh. I mean... You know what? It says that we're not recording any, like, volume right now, or audio, but I'm sure that we are. Hey, Murray, you still here? Hurt?
I think that's a no.
I would say that's probably a no.
Fred? That's alright. Okay. We'll check out the channel. And we'll see if it's live. I'll send you guys a link. Okay. Yeah, I can hear audio, so that's good. And there it is so far. What do you guys think of the stream so far?
So eventful, but we have only just started.
Yep.
Your setup is nice.
Oh, thank you.
Are you fucking serious? Oh god. That really represents me.
You think?
Oh my god. What is
What?
this Think Smart?
Yeah, that's just a little thing, a thing that I've got up there. Whoop.
Oh.
Let me just appropriate the size a little bit.
Appropriate. That's a cool
Word.
background.
Oh, thank you.
Why does your headset blend in with your green screen?
It shouldn't.
Is it just really like is your headset just really skinny on top?
Yeah, it's just two chords.
Oh,
wires.
I see. I see the
Yeah. So there's nothing super crazy about it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was just like I thought maybe your headset was green.
No. So, how much experience do you two... You know, actually, you two introduce yourselves first. I'll start with that.
Who's you two? Me?
Yeah, go for it. You go first.
Assume it would
Oh.
be us two.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Hi, Kate.
That's a... I don't know how to introduce myself.
I mean, that's fine.
Far so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I am Adam. It's not a lot to me, really, but I say weird shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's great, right? You guys can give yourselves a round of applause now. We've done it. We have.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here all day, every day.
Well, alright. First lot of conversation. Are you guys ready for it?
Sure, why not?
No.
No? Yeah?
Yeah. Let's do it. I'll never be ready for anything in my life.
Okay. I
Never
mean,
ready, but I act ready.
we can always just talk about things that you are or aren't ready for in life.
I'm not ready to go to work tomorrow, but such is life.
There we go.
Feel that.
there's number one. Alright, so things that we're not ready for. My age is currently 25. Children
I'm really feeling it.
is something I'm going to say I'm not ready for
I
yet.
can feel the power. I've got a good feeling about this. Awesome.
Fair. Children is one of those things that you're either ready for or you're not.
I'm not ready to accept the idea that I'm gonna exist for a much shorter time than I'm gonna not exist.
Oh, okay.
Rather existential.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm feeling that today.
Also, while we've been chatting the last minute, we gained a follower, Real PMC19. So thank you to them.
That's
Also,
for our children. That's his
M's also arrived in the chat.
Oh, Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. No one can have kids anymore. Pets are the new children. Plants are the new pet.
Okay. Real PMC. Any chance I can get a follow back? We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I'd have to check out your content first. But they ask, where does sovereignty rest in the state of nature? So first off, Adam, Kate, do either of you two know what sovereignty is?
Oh, it's sovereign. I don't know. It sounds very Russian.
Sovereignty would be sort of like ruling class as far as I'm aware of.
I don't actually know what it is.
Alright. Well, oops. Let's check out what sovereignty is first then. How about we
Supreme
start then?
power or authority. Authority, a state to govern itself in a self-governing state. Oh, I
Did you
get
find that in Google?
Yes.
So, just
Where
for anyone
does
else watching, let
sovereign-
me type it in the
How do you
chat,
say that?
and hopefully that should come up on the stream anyway.
Well, if it's without any interference from outside sources, that very much reminds me of like the closed system sort of aspect of entropy. So, where does it rest in the state of nature? I mean, I guess it rests. It doesn't rest. It's kind of entropy within itself in a way.
The problem with having a
crazier and crazier, and I don't know.
I don't know. I suppose the problem with having a sovereignty sort of thing is if it is sort of self-contained, that means it's governing itself. And once you open up something that has power to govern itself is where you find
That's where you find sort of existence, like existence itself is a self-governing state. I mean, we don't have to just be thinking about like people in society here. Like the universe itself is a closed system. Like it's very hard to wrap your head around it, and I've been trying to like understand everything in the past 2 days. I've become like very existential for the past 2 days. It's kind of weird.
That's fine. Existential's good. Is that ever since I said, hey, do you want to do a podcast? Because that's about when I asked, right? It was a few days ago.
Yeah. I think honestly it's triggered by New Year's Eve and too many drugs.
Okay. The person that asked this, Real PMC says, okay, LMK, when I can answer it, I had a great professor once answer this for me. And they said, or at least my opinion, but these are all great comments / answers. So, yeah, good work, team.
I wasn't expecting something so, I don't know, heavy straight off the back, I guess.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Okay. So yeah, PMC, if you wanna give your answer, go for it. PMC says he/she who has the acorn picked. Huh?
Sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, you're right.
I keep kind of forgetting that I'm on a mic right now.
No, that's fine. So PMC says he/she who has the acorn picked it from under the oak tree. Labor/effort can determine ownership. Yeah. I won't lie to you guys. I haven't focused a lot on this question so far.
As I said, it's a very, very heavy one to start off with because it can be sort of thought about in many different ways, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my brain is a little bit too destroyed at the moment to answer this question. But you two did wonderfully, so thank you.
As I said, I don't put a lot of thought into it, so I just say whatever pops into my head.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. That's good. Real PMC says, feeling the music, by the way. The music's actually just free songs that you can get off YouTube. This one's called Membrane. So, different topics. Right?
Yes.
Unless there's any other comments on that one or questions. So we were talking earlier about not being ready for things.
Yeah.
When do you think people these days are ready to work, or for children? Take whichever one you want to answer, or you think sounds fun.
Well, I mean, work's probably an easier one to sort of... I'm not sure if ready would be the correct sort of word for it, but when your needs for financial gain outweigh your want to not to do anything sort of meet. Children,
But
I'm not...
I missed the question because Mom started talking to me.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
So we're talking about work, right, Adam?
That was work. As far as sort of children goes, I mean, as I talk to a friend of mine, a colleague at work, quite frequently, even when you're wanting children, you're never really ready for them because of the fact of you just don't know how it's going to go. Like, I myself was a very, very difficult child. I had a lot of sort of health concerns, and you can never really be ready for a child when you don't know how exact.
Hang on.
Yeah.
How exactly what? You cut out.
How exactly the child is going to turn out, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Like, you could be the nicest, most wonderful parent in the world, but like your child has a brain condition that makes them a literal psychopath, and that's not your fault. Nobody could possibly be ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
That's
I've got to
true.
stop being so dark.
No, that's fine. That's fine. There's a TV show. What's it called? Em would know what it's called. I forgot. It's on Netflix at the moment. There's like 7 kids that have superpowers. I forget.
Umbrella Academy.
Seven
yes,
kids who have
yes. It's
superpowers.
Umbrella Academy.
7 different things.
So, yeah, exactly. There's a point in that series where there's
Oh my God,
a kid who acts kind of crazy at times, and it's the same sort of thing. And the parents in that situation, it's not, you know, their fault that they had a kid, and it's not like it was the wrong timing for them to have a kid. But having a kid that does have issues, yeah. No, I lost my point.
Never had a point to begin with.
No. Real wanted us to repeat the question. The question was just like, when are you ready to, I guess, have kids, you know, children? When should that age kind of be? What deciding factors is there for that? And depending on, like, the society where you live in the world at the moment, when is that? Because that'll
Never?
change. Never? Never's an answer. Yeah.
Suppose it comes down to the individual and their own state of mind. Some people love kids, some people don't. Some people have kids when they're not ready for them. Others never have kids, even though they want them. It's
Let's break it
Again-
down a little bit more, less broad. So, what sort of age do we feel like people should be starting to have kids? Or they might want to have kids or something like that.
I think you shouldn't have kids if you're less than 26 years old, because your brain isn't like even fully developed until you're 25. So 26 gives you a solid year there. But on the other hand, like
You could be
teenagers,
yeah.
like someone who's say 14 or something, they have a lot better understanding of what it's actually like to be a kid. So in a way, that might also be a good age. No, like that would be like a good age, I think, to raise kids in a way, like raising siblings and stuff. But of course, 14-year-olds are kind of hormonal and probably don't want to be around.
Yeah, I mean,
sort of thinking late 20s, early 30s. You've had a while to experience the world, that sort of thing. You're not really
I
going to be
think
getting.
A problem sometimes. I think that people they've had this time to experience the world, so they've completely forgotten what it's like to have not experienced the world, and then they get resentful towards their children because the children don't understand how to have a proper good relationship with the world around them, because they literally have no idea about it. Like they're fresh into the world, and I think a lot of adults forget that kids don't have life experience.
some. Like, if you want to let the kid decide what they want to do, you want to give them free will and the chance to do what they want to do, but they also don't have the background experience to sometimes know what they should be doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Adam, was there something you were going to say?
And have you heard about this whole bean dad thing?
Beanbag?
Bean dad. Beans dad.
Bin's dad.
Beans dad. Beans,
Bean.
like big beans.
Bean dad?
Thing that went viral on Twitter yesterday, and
Daddy Bean?
it was like this father's daughter was like, "Dad, I'm hungry," and they had a can of baked beans, and he was like, "Here's a can opener. I'm not gonna feed you until you figure out how to open the can." She's like 9 years
What?
old and doesn't know how to open a can. And it apparently took her 6 hours to open this can. Like, that is a fucking horrible, condescending thing for a father to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Because he, for some reason, resents her for not knowing how to open a can and not knowing how to feed herself. So
Yeah.
that's where all that kind of came from.
Okay. Like,
That is abuse.
M says that's abuse. I feel like the better way to do that is, the whole motto of teach a man to fish. Like, if you teach people how to do things rather than getting upset and just giving them this big issue, it could be a lot better. Yep.
Generally, how I view a lot of things. It's sort of like at work, I've had to train new staff members how to do certain things, and the way I do it is I show them how to do it once or twice, and then I let them do it, but I sort of supervise what they're doing. allow them to make mistakes that aren't going to be horrendous to undo, that sort of thing, but just sort of allow them to go through while keeping an eye on them until they seem more confident in what they're doing. And I suppose something like that could be adapted to being a parent. You teach a child to do something and sort of keep an eye on how they're doing it when they're starting to do it for themselves until they're confident in what they're doing and you're confident that they're confident.
I can't open a can either. I'm so glad you said that.
Oh, that was M that said that.
I was just reading.
Yeah. It's fun to look at the comments. Speaking of the comments, Herb said you're never ready because there's too many things you can't plan for. You just learn and adapt as you go. And M said depends on personal goals too, traveling, career, partying, that sort of stuff. For when you should be ready to raise a kid.
I think it depends on your mental health as well.
Yeah, it definitely can.
Don't you sort of spiritual and emotional health? Because I think that bringing nothing and turning it in. Let's get existential again.
Sure.
You're bringing you're creating something that never has existed before and never will exist again. And I think that you need to be on some spiritual level aware of what you're doing, and why you're doing it, and how does this thing that you're creating fit into the system that is already established by all the other kind of existing beings.
Sure. Well, I'd probably just break that down into I'll try and simplify it a little bit of what I'm thinking, which is I feel like there's at least two different types of parents. There's probably more. One sort of parent has a lot of like mental and spiritual knowledge and like history, experience and stuff. And they're going into raising a child knowing about themselves quite a bit, and they're able to hand off that information to the next generation, and that's going to help them be a better parent, I would think. Because if you know about yourself, it's easier to teach someone else and to be able to focus on someone else's issues when you're okay. The people, the sort of like parents that are really young and that don't have that knowledge and stuff, I feel like it's not quite the same experience because they're still trying to learn about themselves while trying to learn and teach someone else that's really young. But they do get the experience of getting to grow up and learn alongside their child, which is something we're always doing, but it's more prevalent at younger ages with younger parents.
Yeah. I read this interesting book thing about, it was like a book chapter that I was reading. But in it there's two types of mothers, because this was from like the 1950s and gender roles were a big thing. But it was kind of like there's two types of mothers. There's the there's the perceptual mother who perceives danger around her child and is always protecting her child and sort of teaching a surface level of information about the world to her child in order to protect them from like what is deemed bad. And then there's the other type of mother who delves into the whys and hows and whats of everything and really deeply explains everything. And I don't know what I'm saying, where I'm going with this, but
no, I kind of get it. So the first one, hang on. So the first one protects the child, yeah, or sees lots of things as a threat, and then the second one.
I kind of want to find
out knowledge.
The article because it was like really interesting and something that stuck with me, but it's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain.
Do you remember what it was about? Like the main reason they were saying about it? What was the argument?
Oh, because it was an article about deaf children. There were two deaf children, and one of them they didn't even know he was deaf until he was like 5 years old, and by then like he had acquired, like he'd never been taught sign language, whereas the other one, she was deaf and they knew she was deaf from birth because one of the parents was deaf. So they from birth taught her sign language, and like the way that the boy, the one who they didn't know he was deaf, he couldn't communicate because he couldn't hear, so he couldn't pick up on how to speak. And he'd never been taught to sign because they didn't know that he was deaf. He was just diagnosed as autistic or something. And like, because both of them had the exact same disability, right? But one of them was so much more profoundly impacted by it because he'd never been like the world had never been explained to him. Like it was there was no way for him to distinguish between like what is a bag and what is a train. You know?
Okay,
and that was why they were talking about the mothers, because like in a way there are mothers who don't teach their children about the world, so those children don't grow up knowing how to communicate as well.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like...
Side.
Yeah, you go, Adam.
But then on the flip side, you've got the overprotective parents. Like you've got to sort of try and balance it a little bit. Like be there to protect them from hurt and all that sort of stuff. Care for them, teach them, that sort of thing. But you've also got to allow them to make their own mistakes, learn their own lessons, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, life's always about balance. Is something that my mum always says, actually. Yeah, and like an overprotective parent. For example, a story from someone I knew. I won't disclose, of course, but their mother always vacuumed and cleaned the house non-stop. And what ended up happening was that the kids had such a low immune system from not being around germs and viruses and stuff that they ended up getting sick all of the time when they were older, and their immune system was just kind of non-existent. So that's a thing. But then you also hear these cases of like abuse with kids and stuff where they're kind of just left alone for ages and they're not taught about the world. And maybe a lot of us can understand that and relate when it comes to things like sexual health. Like a lot of us probably weren't taught much about sexual health when we were younger. And then as we got older, we're just like, oh, well, I guess I'm 11 and I've got to fuck now. Like, that. I mean, it's all about awareness. I think the best way to go about it as well is just kind of to let kids kind of do what they want to do and just give support to them. So, if they want to go if they want to jump off the roof of the house, you say no, don't do that. But here's a slightly smaller thing you can jump off of, and I'll teach you how to fall properly so you don't hurt yourself. And then if there's other times in their life where they're like, if they come to you for advice, that's also when you want to give them support. But unless they want the advice, you kind of need to let them go at a certain point when they get to a certain age. Otherwise, instead of being 9 and not opening a can of beans, they'll get to 29 and not know how to open a can of beans. You want that?
Here they have Google videos.
You want the other age, like maybe 15. I don't know, somewhere in between those ages. Maybe less, maybe more. It's all preference. Okay. So M says, I saw 2 kids right next to their mum today, but it was near a busy road, and I was internally like, if that was me, I'd be holding their hands. I don't want to be a helicopter.
I suppose it really depends on the age of the the kids, I suppose, and like the maturity levels. It's like those puzzles that say, "Oh, not for kids over the age of 6 or 7," sort of thing. It's sort of like there's going to be that age where they're putting things in their mouth, and you don't want them to be doing that because they choke on puzzle pieces and all that sort of stuff. But there's also the fact of kids learn at different rates and all that sort of stuff. So you might find that a child, for example, of the age of 6 might actually have the intellect and maturity levels of a 9, 10-year-old because of the way they've been brought up and all that sort of stuff. Like, kids these days are very, very confident with things like tablets and gaming consoles, stuff that we probably didn't have as much of when we were growing up. And yeah.
I was saying someone to someone recently that like there are kids out there now that look at like a page of emojis and know exactly where to tap, like how we know how to type. It's just automatic to them. Like I have to sit there for ages trying to look for an emoji I want to use.
Well, it's like when we were setting up for this and we were in Discord, it's something that I don't use overly frequently, and it took me ages to find all the bits and pieces to sort of do that. And again, it's all a learning process.
Yeah, it definitely is. So, do you guys want to move to the next topic?
Sure.
It's related. So, there's a lot of things I feel like could be improved in the education system. Do you guys have anything like that?
Education system.
Yep.
I mean, teachers are underpaid, underfunded. They're expected to know first aid. They're expected to know the ins and outs of the health and mental needs of 20 to 30 children.
So let's change the world a little bit here. What do you think we could do to change some of those big issues? Well, not us personally. Maybe us personally, but as a solution to these problems.
Cut funding to every military in the world. Make it impossible for anyone to do any kind of organized military shit. So basically world peace, and then put all that money, like all of it, every single penny, into education.
But what if the aliens invade?
The only problem I really see with that one is if you take away all the organised armed forces, you lead holes for the disorganised armed forces, which I suppose are actually kind of worse than the organised ones because they just do what they want.
Yeah, I think there's a place in Africa
I
that's
do
like
believe
that
things like teachers and by extension other services like your nurses and all that sort of stuff, the more structural sort of necessities in our civilization should be more focused on, instead of things like your sports players or your government officials, like not wanting to go down the rabbit hole of talking about politics and all that sort of stuff, but there are quite a lot of Western countries where the governmental systems are more about lining their own pockets and undercutting their adversaries and actual promoting change in anything really, and it's really disconcerting when you can sit down and watch the news, which I haven't done in like 5 or 6 years, but you sit down and you watch it, and nurses who are on strike because of the fact of they want a 4% or even lower percent increase to their living wages because they're having to work 60-hour weeks, and then the very next news story you see is political backbenchers get a 10% pay increase for sitting there being, well, loudmouth know-nothing sort of thing. Again, that's just my own personal opinion.
Can I change my answer?
Yeah, you can go for it. We're always changing.
Well,
Life
if we
is
just
always
like
about
did
change.
away, did away with government as a whole and just went back to living in small communities where there wasn't really a school, there was just a community of people raising the community's children, teaching the community's children what the
we
community.
should all have orphanages. Let's all run the
No,
orphanage.
that's not what I was saying.
I know it's not what you were saying, but
Starting the coal factories up again.
no.
I'm just suggesting that we all live in a commune.
I mean, I feel
We'll
like
start a cult and
you're kind of on the
Yeah.
right page there. In that, if we focus more on our own communities and that sort of development as the focus, that'll lead to better outcomes, which is what we want.
only for your small community, though.
But then, eventually the small community becomes the bigger community, which becomes the bigger community, which becomes the government, which becomes the state government,
Yeah.
which rules over the whole thing. And they're like, we're looking out for our community.
Well, that's essentially what it is. The only real difference, I suppose, is the community leaders, in inverted commas, looking out for their own best interests or the best interests of their community. It's like there's a sort of there's a country, I can't remember which one it is, but it's a more Nordic sort of country. Might be Sweden, Denmark, or somewhere in that sort of vicinity. And to get into politics, they actually have to have relative experience in their chosen field of government. For example, Minister of Education has to have worked as a teacher. Minister of Transport would have had to have worked in some sort of public transport system or something along those lines. And instead of being sort of business magnates and stuff like that, they've actually got relative experience to the position that they hold. I feel I've slightly sidetracked the conversation away from education, but
I mean, I guess to bring it back, I feel like sometimes job employers are asking too much for of an education background from people who they wish to hire.
yeah.
Sometimes I feel like if the individual can just show a portfolio or some sort of previous work of what they've done that's successful and relevant to the field, that should give them a good spot, a good position, a good opportunity. But that's me,
I mean, you have a look at the education system, and it's like you got to spend copious amounts of money that you don't necessarily have to get into a job where you basically have to buy your own pens and pencils for your class to use that may not have any books and supplies because you're just not funded enough to be able to sort of support your class throughout the year.
You reminded me of all the study I did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
That was
it's
not
fine.
my intention.
No, it's fine. I know it wasn't. I tried to do a graphic design course, and at the start of the course, they're like, "Oh, yes, jump in." And I'm like, "Cool, graphic design. Oh, we have to work with computers and do the stuff that I want to do and building, and there'll probably be some architecture and whatever." They're like, "Go find some sticks and some leaves, buy yourself a big $30 bit of ink in a jar, and we'll make some sort of a paper piece with it." I'm like, this isn't the graphic design I wanted. And it wasn't good for me. I mean, maybe this is just me speaking from a Tasmania background though, of wanting specific sorts of education that we maybe can't get here. Or not reading enough into a course expecting something else. I don't know, I thought that tied into what you said, but now I'm having my doubts.
What kind of education do you want?
Well, here's something. I feel like and this is going to sound really big-headed, but I feel like I'm fairly qualified in a fair amount of things. But the shortest way for me to get a qualification in things that I've already learned is to go through, say, TAFE, some sort of training companies, to get a certificate, which will take like a year long to do. And I've been trying to do that, and a lot of it's just, assignment after assignment, and all the questions are really boring and plain, and it's just, it's such a long, drawn-out experience, when I'd rather just have like a day or or like a week or two to turn up to a place and be like, here's how I can prove my experience, here's this awesome video compilation that I made or something, I don't know. Be a bit creative with it, and just be like, that's why you should hire me.
You know, they need to know, like, how you made it, and, like, yeah, what methods you use, like, kind of thing.
I mean, it depends on where you're going for, but yeah.
Well, fair, but you've also got to take into account there are also going to be courses where you're going to have people applying for a job and allowing them to have that hands-on experience when they may not necessarily be sort of qualified in that field. It's sort of like going back to what you were saying about TAFE. I think that's a good sort of example of the education system, because you go in there and you'll see that there are a lot of teachers that absolutely love what they do. They have classes that are a manageable size. I mean, any class that can put up with me as a student running rampant the way I do, and still find joy in what they do, they're obviously well qualified for what they're doing. And then you've got other classes that in the same course that I was doing, that you've got one teacher to about 30 students, and 2/3 of the class English is their second or third language, and then they're just so underfunded, stretched for time, sort of thing, that by the time these students get to their first lot of exams, they're all sitting there in their exams going, well, I have no idea what I'm doing, because we haven't covered a lot of this. I've tried to ask the teacher questions, but there's a line of 6 or 7 other students that have all got questions. And they're trying to get around all these students and teach a class, be the best educators that they can, when they're just severely overwhelmed.
Yeah. Was that specifically all a TAFE example, or just education in general?
Yeah, no, that was a TAFE example. That was
okay.
2 separate classes from a course that I did.
Yep. So, something else I should add as well is, I'm not saying that TAFE and certificates and stuff and training is bad. I'm also saying it doesn't work entirely for me. Because for some people, you get the hands-on experience, it's a year-long course, they get what they want, they do it, they get into a job, a workplace, it's fantastic. Yeah. And then, you can say similar things about university. You're there, you learn a lot about books, I guess. You learn knowledge. The costs of the courses are probably way too much, in my opinion, at times. Depending on the course as well.
It's way too much for any kind of education, I think.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah.
Knowledge not charged for.
I mean, that's.
But it should that's a bit of a double-edged sword, because teachers should be paid.
Yes, teachers should be paid, definitely. Yeah. No, something that I've been thinking about is, I feel like the education system would benefit from having more teachers working less hours. And potentially with smaller classes or the same size, I'm not really sure. But
or at least if they're going to have a larger class, at least have an offside or a teacher's aide or two that can help.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if your class has over 30 kids, that's already way too much. It depends on the age groups as well. Like, obviously, college, university students and stuff are a bit different. College might be similar, I don't know, but university onwards and stuff, when people are like adults and they can do what they want, leave when they want, it's fine. But when you're dealing with, if you imagine like being at a kindergarten or like an after school care or something, and having like 30 tiny midgets running around. Sorry, that's probably offensive, isn't it? I revoke my statement. So if you have a lot of...
I heard no statement.
Okay, that's fine. So you have lots of tiny childs running around. And how do you look after all these tiny childs? You know, like... If you have to spend 5 minutes understanding if all the kids are hungry or thirsty or something, you're probably going to find out about maybe 4 of them, and then there's going to be like 6 different issues that pop up. Like, one's asking about something else, and you have to go somewhere, and another person's just walked into the building to ask you a question, etc.
One of the kids has got into the paint and is finger painting
Yeah.
another child's eyes.
Yeah. Do you say dyes?
No, I said eyes.
Oh, okay.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, I was like, well, do I have some finger paint or something?
Very unusual school.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you going to do there? You definitely need you need more staff on board for, especially, yeah, like I said, anything that's still like high school, primary school sort of ages. You just need that extra support. And everyone knows that, I think it's pretty accepted that one-on-one sort of teaching generally bodes a lot better results because it's more personalized and they have more time for the student. So if we're just going to make classes bigger and greater in number, then we're probably diminishing our education anyway. And maybe that's one reason why so many of us have to go to college and university. You know, or like training and stuff afterwards. Because we don't get that decent education when we should be. Or because, I don't know, during that time we were bullied by other kids and now we're traumatized and we couldn't focus in class.
Well, I also found I didn't do well at high school because I found my first year of high school, it was all new stuff and it was all really interesting and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. And then my second year of high school, they basically went through the whole system again. It was virtually the same classes. I even handed in a couple of projects that I'd done the previous year and got an even better mark for it, which was very disconcerting, and it really impacted on my experience at school to feel that as someone who wasn't dumb, to go in and get treated like I was dumb, like I'd be put in higher level learning classes and they'd just go, okay, copy out of a textbook. It really impacted my want to learn because I wasn't engaged. I just felt like I was treading the same water over and over again, and really impacted my own ability to learn, to the point where when I got into college, I'd spent so little time in classes at high school because I didn't feel engaged that I had to teach myself how to learn again.
Yeah. I
definitely got that when I started university. Like, I just kind of lost interest in school after about grade 7. Not just like you, like the year after high school. After that, it was just like, the only point of being here is kind of the social aspect at this point. And I did really badly in like high school and college because I was just also very disengaged. And I think the worst thing about it all is like, they teach you things, but they don't teach you why they're teaching you. So you have to read fucking Moby Dick or some shit, and you have no idea why, and like it's your critical thinking skills, but you don't even really know what critical thinking skills are because you're 12 years old and you've never had to think critically about anything in your life.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe this probably isn't relatable for everyone, but when I started my first Pokemon game, I had to critical think so hard to find out which Pokemon I wanted, which starter. But
I've always been a fire starter.
Oh, there you go. That's a good song.
Fire Pokemon starter. I'm not a pyromaniac.
Oh, Knife Party has a song I think called Firestarter or Skrillex or something. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Prodigy.
I'm getting off. Thank you. I forgot. What were we talking about?
We're doing a podcast.
Huh?
Of the education system.
The what of the education system?
Back then, the education system is not very good.
Oh, yes. Yes. Damn it, I derailed the whole conversation.
This happens every time you talk about Pokemon. We're having a nice in-depth conversation, and then all of a sudden, Squirtle rears his ugly head.
Oh, right. So it was about something like, getting unmotivated in class. And you said about critical thinking, and that's how I led to that point. Right, so I think one of the biggest things that we should change in the education system, and I'm always going to say this at the moment, is mental health. They need to teach mental health in schools, just increase critical thinking, knowledge. We have to understand why we're learning things. I just took that point from you, Kate. But
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's like when you're doing maths in high school and you're learning trigonometry, which isn't an invalid course, but it's not one that most people are going to use in later on life sort of thing. Like if you're working in construction, trigonometry can be handy, but there's a lot of things in the education system that are only really applicable in certain lines in life.
Yes.
Afterwards.
Yes.
You don't really get a lot of sort of classes that focus on, okay, what is tax? Why is tax? How to tax? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which comes a lot more relevant later on in life, particularly in countries where you have to work out your own taxes. It's not like in Australia where you've got GST and stuff like that, and tax is often taken into account for tax time and all that sort of stuff. But it's one of those things of a lot of people, even my own age, sort of like, well, I have to pay heaps in tax and it sucks. And they don't understand where the tax goes, why the tax happens, that sort of thing.
I don't even understand that stuff a lot of the time.
It's sort of like teach more relevant life skills, and then when you get to sort of college and university sort of ages, then you sort of learn your focus of what you want to do with your life.
Yes, I would agree to that a lot. In fact, this is something not a lot of people knew about, and no one really does know about it. But at a school I went to, in later years, they had a program for grade 10s, which was, for anyone that doesn't know what grade 10s are, they're like 15 to 16 year olds. It's the end of high school in Australia, generally. So the program was that on their last year, they didn't have to do more traditional subjects like maths and science so much. They chose an area that they were interested in, such as, say, electrician. And then all their learning would be catered towards that interest and heading them towards that pathway. So if they were to learn maths, it would be related to being an electrician and what sort of maths you'd need to learn. If you had to learn science, you'd probably learn about how electricity works, for example. And I find that that sort of teaching was really, really cool and really influential. I'm not sure if they still do it, but it was more of a trial year, the year that I remember it happening, because I wasn't at the school at that point. I'd already left. But I do remember hearing about it and knowing someone or two that went there, and it was really cool. What do you guys think of that?
That sounds really cool.
Sound cool. It's sort of like once you sort of reach an age in life, I mean, do you ever really know what you want to do with your life? But I mean, when you sort of find out what it is you want to do career-wise, then start learning about it, as opposed to being in college and having to do a compulsory math or a compulsory English, that sort of thing, that might not necessarily be a vital knowledge for what you want to do in life.
Yeah, I would say algebra is not very important. I don't think I learned algebra until college, actually.
That's not very important to most people, but we would not be having this conversation on this technology if it was not for algebra.
I mean, no, you're 100% right. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm also saying that I don't think it should be taught in early sort of schooling. And a few similar subjects too. If you think about it, learning to build a volcano is pretty cool, right?
I don't think it should be, because it teaches like skills like logic and shit like that, and that is important. Even if the algebra itself is not necessarily applicable in later life, like the kind of problem-solving skills that you gain from learning algebra as a young person that's valuable. That has value.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want to learn a bit of basic science, but you don't want too deep a science, because I feel like that's more of an interest that you're going to follow later in life when you understand the topics more.
I actually feel if I had a better science teacher in high school, I wouldn't have lost interest the way I did. But I think that's just because I've always found the sciences to be very interesting. I actually feel that if in high school my science teachers had have actually paid more, sort of, they actually focused more on the fact that we wanted to learn things, we wanted to do experiments and all that sort of stuff, like learn circuitry and stuff like that in sciences, that I might not have spaced out of high school and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of it's got to be catered to our interests, though, which sadly it doesn't seem to be. Something that could be cool, though, is if they had 3 science teachers, for example, right, in like a small school, instead of just 1 science teacher. And those 3 science teachers all teach a different type of science. And for your science classes, you get to choose which type of science you want to learn. Like, for example, if it's about circuitry, if it's about like physics, the periodic table of elements, something like that. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of stuff. But for me personally, it wasn't until 2020 that I learnt that I love physics. Adam actually helped me with that a little bit. He showed me a book that was meant for babies. Or maybe it was...
I feel so honoured that me showing you the how to explain physics to babies has reawoken your desire for learning.
Yeah, and shout outs to the people that made that book. I don't remember who they are. You know what? The book's behind me somewhere. I might pull it up in a bit.
It was someone, Barry. I don't do names.
But before I forget, I think that teaching science like that would be great. Teaching maths in certain pathways would also be great. Where instead of having the one teacher that does all of it, you have specific teachers that have specific opportunities for you to learn it. Now the awful thing would be like trying to balance that out and being like, okay, this teacher's got like 2 students, this one's got like 62. Like that's going to be difficult. I'll leave that for other people to try and balance out. That's a later problem.
Well, another one that I always found to be a bit of a failure as far as my school life went is we would have to do what we at my high school called SOS, which was basically just basic history. Yeah, and this is probably one of those ones that I found to be particularly boring because the school basically, as you went through year 7, was you'd do Australian history, being in Australia. Then you would do a bit of Roman, a bit of Greek, a bit of Egyptian, and that was the whole year. Now, the first year that was really, really great, and then it just, when you went into your second year, it was essentially the same learning materials all over again, and it was sort of like, by the time I got to year 9, because it was a mandatory course for all 4 years of your high school, I was like, well, I don't want to do these again. I've done these the last 2 years. I want to do something a little more interesting. I wanted to sort of focus on the Norse mythology. I find the Norse mythology to be a lot of fun, very interesting to sort of learn about and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we weren't able to do that.
So I actually found the book, by the way, while we were waiting. So it's Optical Physics for Babies. Oh, actually, the one you showed me might have been... It was Newtonian Physics for Babies you showed me.
Yes, it was Newtonian Physics.
This one's by Chris Ferry, and so is the Newtonian one. So shout-outs to Chris Ferry. They make awesome books for babies. And you know what? Let me just give you guys a demonstration of what the books look like.
Why has your green screen has turned into a red screen and your lips are blue?
Oh, I haven't looked at my lips. Oops. Okay, now the green screen won't work because the book is red on the inside. But that's alright. There we go. So, example, this is a ball. Ball is red. You know, like, that's simple enough. Babies can understand that. Then it's like, it reflects red light. And then... whatever that says. It looks like it's some language I can't read. It absorbs blue and green light. You know? Like, this sort of information is amazing. And then it talks about light refraction and colours, and you get to learn about dispersion. That's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. And I bought that book specifically so I can teach, like, babies and young children and stuff what rainbows are and where they come from. Which I think is a really cool tool to be able to teach them that. So if you ever want to teach kids about where rainbows come from, I recommend that book. I'm not sponsored, I'm just saying it's a great book.
So was it the one that did the whole light refraction and how light interacts through crystals and raindrops and all that sort of stuff?
Huh? Oh. Yeah, that's the one, I'm pretty sure.
It's fun, cool, because I know that there were a lot that sort of did the same sort of, this is a ball, it is red,
They all
sort of thing.
kind of start with that very often, yeah.
Yeah.
That aside, I think my big argument was just, we learn a lot of things at school that are probably pretty irrelevant. Well, not irrelevant, but things that could be more useful that aren't being taught are replaced by these. Like, for example, it seems... who was it? M in the chat there learnt 3 languages? Was taught 3 languages? Japanese, French, and German. If you're a person that has no interest in going to Germany, you're not going to get any benefit from learning those languages. It's great to learn languages at a young age, I think. But generally they're things that you'll want to have an interest in, or that will be around you quite a lot culturally. So if your family is Japanese, it might be important to learn Japanese as well as English. You know? Or if you want to go there one day, that's when you'll learn it, and that's when you'll be motivated to learn it. But I think the school place itself doesn't need that information so much.
It's also to do with location. Like, again, my school taught Indonesian, and I remember basic Indonesian, not enough to really sort of pass conversations, but I'll sometimes sort of go, oh, I remember what that word means. But that's just because they are geographically a neighbour of us. Whereas if you lived in somewhere, for example, like the UK, learning things like French because they're right on the borders, German, Spanish, all that sort of stuff is probably going to be a lot more sort of prevalent in places like that. I believe Switzerland, Austria, places like that. English, because of the fact of you get a lot of tourists, and in Europe there are a few English-speaking sort of countries that a lot of people, particularly in the hospitality industries, will sort of have English as a secondary language or a first language to sort of cope with the fact of they've got one language and they're also learning a language that has a bigger impact on their own sort of local area.
I think language is something that's neat to learn, and I feel like people don't need to learn it at schools. As, you know, aside from the most prominent one, or if they want to learn a language. Because most people, if they're interested in a language, they'll just try and learn it themselves. Offering the tools for students to be able to do that, I think is great, and should definitely continue. But my main argument is that there's a lot of classes that don't really need to be there so much. Because I think in place, good mental health and understanding would be really important. Or just, you know, a few extra hours to spend with students, helping them understand their own work and what they are learning, I think could be very beneficial as well. Although I'm not a teacher, so I can't really say how beneficial that would be. But yeah, like Herb just said, yeah, I learned some Russian because I was bored. Wait, hang on, that's not... I didn't get where that was coming from. But oh yeah, Herb. Huh?
Which another language is like, particularly if you're planning on moving, like I work in retail at the moment, and I find that I get a lot of people who come in whose English is very, very
Yeah.
makes them trying to communicate what they want from me to sort of help them really creates a big barrier.
Yeah. I mean, we could always learn their language. But a lot of people have the argument
I can barely
that...
do English.
A lot of people have...
I just speak in rambling.
The argument that they come into Australia, so they should learn to speak the same sort of way that we do, because they're the guests coming to our country, where if we were going to their country, we'd try and prep to learn for theirs. But I don't have any other sort of sufficient conversation to put for or against that. At the moment, that's probably the only argument I've got for it.
There's no way in hell that an English person would learn a new language to go visit a country.
That's absolutely a very fair comment. Sort of saying about Switzerland and Germany, or learning that, is mostly because unless it was something that they learnt as a child sort of thing, they have no interest in sort of learning for a 2-week sort of holiday. So unless they're sort of thinking about moving there long term, they've got no interest in learning a language. They'll just sort of go around going, does anyone speak English? Does anyone speak English?
Yeah,
Sort of thing.
a lot of Europeans really look down on people who speak only English.
Interesting. But I don't think language is the only thing that we could potentially shift around in the education curriculum.
Do you think, like, high school level art and all that sort of thing is probably something we can dispense with? Like, if you want to learn to draw and all that sort of stuff, that's probably something that you can do a specialty course in. Like, not a lot of people.
I disagree strongly with that. I think the arts should be a focus.
I semi-agree.
For like the under 18s. For everyone, actually.
Speaking from my own experience, where basically my high school art career was basically, oh look, you can use this potter's wheel to make a bong. Oh look, you can stab a piece of some sort of fabric and make it do this. It's like, you didn't really learn a lot of the history in art sort of thing. Like,
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was basically pseudo-expressionism sort of art. I say pseudo because you got given directives on what you could and could not make, which sort of negates any sort of artistic drive in it.
I definitely think that art in school should be reformed in a way.
Yeah.
It's too skill-based and not enough creation and communication-based.
Sort of. These
Like,
all sound very
how to
specific.
Get better at drawing rather than how to express what you want to express in a creative way.
Yeah, if you're going to do an art class, allow people to do their own artistic expression in the way they feel most confident with. Like, I can't draw a triangle to save my life. It's a pretty basic sort of shape. On the other hand, I absolutely love photography. I had a photography teacher in college who didn't understand what I was attempting to do with my photographs because
They're just like, why did you take a picture of a pot, Adam?
Well, no, it was actually a ladder, but still.
Oh, okay. No, but not everyone understands artistic expression.
Yeah.
And I think one big flaw that I've just realised with the education system, especially with arts, is especially like traditional sort of arts. Instead of, them looking at your picture of a ladder and being like, I don't understand what you're talking about, they should be trying to help students better themselves and head towards a direction where at the moment maybe the system's more focused on, I have to give this student a mark or a grade, I have to make sure they pass or fail, so I don't understand what they're doing, I'm going to fail it. Like maybe there's too much focus on the grading system rather than actually just helping the students individually,
especially for something as nebulous as art. Too much pass fail sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it's more like, hey, if you got there, you did some sort of a nice painting, you succeeded on the painting thing, and then your next report, if you did a nice painting, maybe your teacher's just going to be like, it was a good painting, I didn't see any sort of changes though or improvement, but it's a nice painting. Like, maybe they need to mark, what's the word I'm looking for? Based on what you create, the quality of it, with less focus on the quality in some ways. So instead of being like, okay, this is
if you were going to do something like that and still have it graded, what would you grade on? Because as far as arts goes, it is a very personalised sort of thing. I love photography. I love writing novels.
Yeah.
But how would a teacher who is teaching art grade those specific things? Like what criterion would be used to grade these?
How motivated they are to learning and developing their talent compared to someone that's just, I'm in this class because I'm forced to be here, so I'm going to draw a stick figure.
I did a photography unit at uni last year, and I also love photography, so cool. We can be friends. But our main sort of assessment was our art journal, which we had to have for the end of year assessment, we had to have 8 pictures and then a journal to go with it, and the journal would have all the experimentations, photographic experimentations, and why you're doing what you're doing, and you had to have an artist statement for the 8 photos that you had. So it wasn't just being assessed on photos, it was being assessed on your creative mind and
your process
how
behind
you're
it,
expressing your creativity by what kind of things you're doing to practice, and what kind of ideas that you have, and what kind of inspirations you have, and how your work reflects your inspirations. So that's how we were marked. It wasn't really anything to do with the aesthetics of our photos. It was everything that was behind the photos.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fantastic way to
You can see merit in that. Why did you choose film photography over digital? Why are your photos in black and white, not in color? Like, what is the creative decision that's behind them?
Yeah. I thought you were asking me those questions, but yeah, everything had to be in black and white. That was the only thing that we had to do for our photos, which I thought was very cool as well, because...
Well, you can certainly take that as a personal question if you want. It was more a statement, but a statement can always be a question when you put the little doohickey mark on the end.
Yeah, I was confused. I was like, I didn't choose film. I did digital the whole time.
So, Herb and M both had some pretty nice comments over here. So let me just read these out. So, we'll start with the negative ones they said. M said, our art teacher changed everyone's work and was super biased towards the naturally talented. And Herb said, my high school art was draw a thing. Wow, you suck. And then they said, Herb says, art is 100% subjective. If you don't understand it. So he said, if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. That doesn't mean it's bad or wrong, which I very much agree with, you know? If someone doesn't understand art, it doesn't mean it's bad. M also said, ooh, I must say, in my teaching course, I really like how they taught us to teach art to the little ones. It was really focused on not making them feel shit and free to experiment. And, yeah.
That's really cool.
It is really cool. I feel like modern day art classes should be more about helping people improve and maybe less focus on who can learn from my instructions the best, but starting from a place of, hey, let's have a look at what work you do have, let's see how we can potentially improve it, and then we'll work on things like, I don't know, say marketing if you want to get there out as an artist, or where you could potentially use your pieces of art, and what sort of applications we can find to, you know, affix them to. Like, if you wanted to put them on a canvas, you know, start on the canvas, that's fine. If you wanted to eventually get them digitalized onto an electronic ink screen, and then take said screen, put it on your fridge, so your fridge permanently has your artwork on it, and you can constantly change it whenever you like, that sounds really neat. Sell that to people. But anyway, the focus, I think, should be on improving the artwork skill that you have now, and not improved in a bias, like, I think this is the way you should go sort of sense. But just as, like, here's some feedback, let's find out what other people say is feedback, this is what's potentially worked, do some research, come back to me, I'll let you know how you're, going along with it.
Find ways to harness the creativity in an individual and find ways to improve it, as opposed to making it a pass-fail class as far as the subject median goes.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Good talk. Is there anything you two want to talk about? Or anyone else in the chat? Any
I don't know. I mostly was here because, like, you tend to always ask questions, and we always devolve into some sort of weird conversation. And you're like, "Hey, let's do this." A group of people, and I'm like, "Sure." I didn't know thinking it was actually going to be a thing.
Yeah. Let me just check if someone else wants to chat.
I'm here.
You are here?
Yeah,
Oh, hey. How you
Hey.
doing?
good.
Did you want to be in on this conversation?
I don't mind. I've been listening.
Oh yeah. Oh well. So, introduce yourself. Go for it.
I'm Maddie. I went to high school with Shadow ages ago, and we've stayed friends during the whole time. Yeah. Hi.
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 So, did you have any sort of opinion on like education and schools and stuff?
No, I agree with what you're saying, that there are quite a few subjects that can probably be replaced with ones that would help people out a lot more in life, or have extracurricular ones that people can take to help their life out a lot more, especially regarding like mental health and taking care of everything, even if they do more of it in like PE or something like that. And always having art classes, I think, is good for students who are particularly harder to maintain, because it gives them an outlet where it's not the school trying to conform them so much that it makes them worse.
Yeah. Nicely said.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's good. Well, I was actually thinking about maybe wrapping this up then, if you guys are feeling similar.
Up to you. You've got the controls.
Kate?
Oh, I do have to walk my dog pretty soon.
Alright.
Probably get a burger. I've been craving like a burger.
Alright. Shall we go one more topic, then stop?
Yeah.
Alright. And I'll also just say that if you guys want to put suggestions, we also have a Discord server and you can join it and put some suggestions in there if you want. Or you guys, that I'm chatting with in that chat there, you can also, put anything you want to talk about. If you guys want to make this a weekly series or fortnightly, we could as well. It's
And Tuesdays are usually the best day to get me for pretty much anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hang on. Start again. It's real quiet or something. I think you were cutting out.
Thought I had a thought, but instead it was just burger.
Okay. Yeah. No. Well, maybe we'll leave it there then. Anyway, it's a good old. It's like an hour and a half stream almost. So, solid effort.
For a first run through, yeah, definitely solid effort.
Yeah. Alright. I'll leave it there. Do you guys want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye guys! Bye! Bye!
Hey.
Bye!
Bye.